Hello, and welcome to another episode of Scavenger Life. This is episode number 215 at scavengerlife.com. Live from Amsterdam. Wait, we're not live. Yeah. This is recorded from Amsterdam.
Yep. Welcome to Trash Shelf Radio.
Trash Shelf Radio.
It's one of those shows, that's what I want to do, is pay some guy to, have that radio voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. So we are in Amsterdam. We're here for... Basically, we're in Europe for a month. And it's funny, someone just anonymously left a comment on the blog a couple of days ago and was like, aren't you afraid of burning out?
Yeah.
And I think it's the exact opposite. I'm almost kind of embarrassed. It's like an embarrassment of how rich I feel.
Yeah.
And I think I sometimes forget, why we live. It's this life, and then we show up here, we slept last night for sure, catching up on sleep, and then I wake up and I'm just walking around Amsterdam and I just forget, the freedom we have.
Yeah.
I forget, for the most part, the peace of mind
right.
I have because we have this life, and just really the endless opportunities that we've kind of made for ourselves.
Well, it was funny. The comment was really funny because they're like, you're doing all this stuff and now you're gonna go to Europe for 30 days.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm like, we're going on a 3-week vacation. That's not stressful.
Yeah, I know. I think the person was not saying it in a bad way. They were just, being like,
yeah,
don't push yourself too hard. And I think it's my fault because I'd written a blog post about how we're only home for a week. We're it's rushing around, trying to do details and then going again.
Yeah.
I mean, but, when we were at home for that week,
yeah,
one of the things we did was we bought some stuff at an auction, in a local auction we have has an online auction.
Yeah.
And we bought it's furniture. And I remember, it's about an hour away and I was driving over there.
That was quite a trip.
And the truck. I just really remember it was it hit me there too. It was a beautiful day, the windows rolled down, and it was in the middle of the day, and I was just thinking, what kind of life is this?
Yeah.
This is awesome.
yeah.
I'm not having to show up to a job today or tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah.
I caught it myself. What I was thinking about some problems, but the problems were about things we've talked about we want to do.
Yeah.
These projects, these long-term projects. And I was thinking wow, what a life that, when I had a job and I would think about things, it was always about, I hope one day I can do things I want to do.
Right. That was your main thought.
I'm not sure how that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'd love to do these other things. But my thoughts would never go beyond that because, I had daily life to attend to.
You had to go to your job all the time.
And, and that's it's what it is here. I love the fact that we can be here in a city as we love and really not have a lot of stress because we've kind of worked out our income and our bills and the numbers make sense and I'm not stressing,
Right.
This is a great life.
I mean, we're making money on 2 businesses while we're here. I mean, we've set it up so that those things happen. Right. It's not like that magically happened. No, We've been working for years to make sure that we can go away for a month and still have money, that's paying for this trip. You know?
And really, I think the thing that I have to be grateful for is that, we aren't putting anything off.
Right.
Almost the stress that comes is just because we can do anything.
Yeah.
We have infinite choices, and the stress is more just are we taking advantage of all the opportunities we want to?
Exactly.
Are we doing what we want to do? And I'm wow, that's a crazy luxury problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to just mention, before we left our little small town, and we have lots of friends there, and, people are like, oh, you're going away tomorrow? Where are you going? Oh, we're going to Amsterdam, and then probably Paris and Barcelona. Well, we know we have to go to Barcelona. And they're like, oh my God. And also, how long are you gone for? 30 days.
Yeah.
People are just like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah, I think that's why...
It gets a little bit...
I feel when I say that term is a good one. It's an embarrassment
of riches.
Of riches, where it's just I just feel sometimes like, how did I deserve this?
Yeah.
Like, this is so
Well,
good.
it's almost like I don't need a fancy car to drive around town and be fancy and rich. I need things like this in my life, or I like to have experiences and time to travel.
We've chosen, like, this is what we like to work for.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I remember, so it was 20 years ago. So it was like 1996.
Yeah.
I had just graduated from college.
Right.
And I remember, you know, I'd been in school. I was 21, almost 22. And I'd been in school since I was like a little kid.
Yeah.
You know, high school, go right to college. I finished college. And I just remember it was the first time in my life I didn't have to go to school anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember I skipped my college graduation. It was a big state school,
Wait,
so
you never ever told me that.
Yeah, my parents, because I went to school in another state, they weren't going to come. So, like, you know, and it's like one of the graduations where there's like
20,000
10,000
people. Yeah.
So I skipped it, and I remember I had a little 1983 Honda Accord. So
nice.
Yeah, it was a great car.
Awesome car.
It took me to California and back like 6 times.
Those things last forever.
But I sold it to a friend of mine for $600. He only gave me $300 because that's all he had, and he was gonna pay me the rest, which he never did. But I remember I bought a ticket to Ireland, and I went to Europe, and I lived there for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I remember I just had that $300, like, because I bought a ticket earlier, and but I made it work, and I was working the whole time.
Yeah.
I went to different countries, and I would in Europe, and mainly I worked in kitchens, and because I didn't have papers, so I was like washing dishes, cooking. But that's what I enjoyed doing, was going to different places, the common thing. But 20 years later, this is what I feel like I work for. Right. Where now I can travel in a much different way. Right. Rent an apartment. I have as much money, for the most part, as I want to spend. I mean, I can do anything. Yeah. I can eat well.
Yeah. Well, because we're frugal.
I'm with a very special person.
Who's that?
I'm not alone anymore. And I just think about it, and I've got to remember that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be grateful because, which you tell me all the time, when we were coming here, it was, for me, I had a very, very busy week because I was packing 60 items that sold while we were in New York. Right before that, another embarrassing thing. New York, 2 weeks, free apartment. Right. And I was exhausted. I was just like, oh my God, I am packing the craziest stuff.
Right. I mean, so like when that person commented about, be careful of burning out. Yeah. I mean, it's a valid comment. Valid. Even when we're doing the stuff we want to do.
It's a lot.
I mean, there's no limits here, so we have to find our own limits of what we want to do. But, I mean, one reason why we have this podcast and talk about this stuff is so others may be also able to reap the benefits. Right. I mean, everyone wants to, like, not have to work a shitty job. Yeah. And, do what they want to do, but, instead of, like, trying to give people, like, a package, like a system to follow, we're just more trying to share our experience so people can, balance the work it takes to do either one. I mean, this didn't just happen for us over life. I mean, it started when we decided that it was okay to live life differently than what what we're all kind of taught in a way. Yeah. And that was back in 2006. Yeah. I mean, it's been 10 years now. And I remember it was a very conscious decision, like where we had a conversation about we had jobs, we were making pretty good money. We started investing money in like index funds or like stock market. Yeah, that's true. Because we were making some extra money, but I didn't, should we buy a house? Like, where do we live?
we were trying to figure it out. But the way we figured it out was through examples we'd seen in people we knew. That is the only way. When I met Mikey and Wendy, and they were like, "Oh, we're doing this. We did this. We quit our jobs." I was like, "What?"
If you listen, for anyone kind of new here, if you listen to the first 60 episodes of this podcast, we did it off and on with our friends Mikey and Wendy.
Yep.
And they were a big influence on us.
Huge
because
influence.
they had done what we're doing, and they did it first. They
Yep.
quit their jobs and kind of started to live this other life.
Yeah.
And, you know, we love those examples, and that's kind of like what we're trying to be here, is like to be, like, it helps us to have an image in our head of the people who we'd like to become.
Right.
You know?
And also, like, it helps us to exchange experiences so that we say, hey, this worked for me, this didn't work. Someone else is like, try this.
Right.
Try this.
Because, you know, we had known I had known for a long time, because I'm a bit older than you, that 9-to-5 jobs were not my bag.
Yeah.
But, you know, even when I met you, it still took me a year or two before I was able to shake off the idea, like, wow, I could really live a life without
Going to an office.
Working a 9-to-5
Yeah,
job.
exactly. And you know what? Honestly, I have to say this. Even after living this lifestyle, the freelancer lifestyle, you know, or whatever we want to call this now, there are moments where I'm like...
Are there?
No, I mean, you know, when things get stressful or you're like, you know, it gets scary because like we talk about with eBay, even Airbnb, even your freelance jobs, you don't have control over those because you're like, will they hire me again? Is anyone going to rent for the rest of the month?
Right, it's
Is
too
anyone
slow.
to buy anything? Like
Right.
now, eBay's super slow for us. But so you get afraid and you're like, should I just go like work for someone else's like B&B and like manage their B&B just so they pay me every week? But as we always say, you can't control that either.
Yeah.
They could let you go at any time,
Sure.
you know? So,
you know, it's cool. So I think that's the other thing. We haven't really talked about this so much, but when we are going out of town,
yeah.
most of the time, we're traveling scavenger style.
Yeah, very much
in the
scavenger
sense
style.
of like, how do you pay for the travel? The reason why we've taken these trips recently is because we're getting something for free, kind of.
Right.
I mean, like it's in Europe because our friend called and said, we're going out of town. Do you want a free apartment? So,
And we said yes.
So as a scavenger style, you're just like, I'll take it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we have the flexibility
Right.
to do something like that. Now we're in Europe because we're doing a job at the end of the month, and they're paying for our travel over here.
Yeah.
So we have a free trip. And so we're like, well, let's be scavengers and, like, pull more time out of a trip that we
Right.
don't have to pay for.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
And, you know, that's the cool thing. It's just like when we're... You know, it's got to me the same kind of feeling of when we're in a thrift store and we're digging around in a box. You know, you're trying to make value out of something that, you know, doesn't have value right away.
Yeah, and like, I think because, you know, we know people who do conferences. We're working at a conference, and they go from conference to conference. They go home for a couple days, they go to conference to conference. People ask us, like, when we're there and we're talking to them, they're like, oh, what's your next, you know, gig? We're like, oh, our next gig is this gig next year.
Right.
And they're just like, what are you talking about? Like, they don't understand, like,
Right.
how crazy we put our life together. So it's just funny, even within, like, the freelancer circuit, where people are like, I gotta get to Orlando next week, you know, or whatever.
So, you know, just to kind of wrap this part of it up, I mean, so we're sitting here in this apartment. It's a one-bedroom apartment, but it's in the 9 streets of Amsterdam.
Yep.
And,
You can look it up on...
it's basically as if we have an apartment in Soho it's Manhattan. Super
That's
nice.
the type of neighborhood it is.
And, you know, we really like Amsterdam because really it feels like a village. It's like
It's
a
a big
giant
village.
village where you can walk everywhere.
It doesn't feel like a big sprawling
Little
city.
tiny streets and really...
Yeah, it's amazing.
A lot of young people. It's a very youngish place. Yeah. And, you know, in some ways it's almost better to me than it's New York.
Yeah.
Because it's super urban.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like almost
very small.
A smaller size. It's not
I like how you
overwhelming.
called it a village. Like, the buildings are... I don't think there are any high-rises.
So instead of feeling... overwhelmed, actually, like, it's this morning, I got up, I got some coffee, and I took a walk, and I was like, this is what recharges me.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And,
well, it's like New York. Like, to me, New York,
right.
because we're away from our rental, like we've said, we're still managing it from afar, and our friend is taking care of it, but you're not cleaning it every other day, you know? So you're just like, all right, I can, you know, mellow out a little bit and sleep late. Oh, we sleep late all the time, but I mean,
yeah,
not feel like I gotta go pack some stuff. I gotta go make some phone calls or whatever.
So, have we even mentioned eBay one time? So this is an eBay podcast, people.
eBay.
But it's also kind of just describing the life of two eBay sellers. So this past week, we talk about our numbers, and this kind of grounds the conversation. Because ultimately, all this cool stuff we're talking about, we're still selling on eBay.
Right.
So this past week has been, again, it's kind of been par for the course for the past maybe 45 days, maybe even 60 days. It's been kind of slowish. So our flagship store, we sold 19 items and we made about $1,200.
Wow, 19 items, $1,200.
And then in our second store, we sold 4 things for $100, which is definitely lower.
Yeah.
And really, though, this past week, we sold, there were 2 days where we sold like $500 one day.
Yeah.
And then like almost $300 the second day. And then the other days were like, we sold one thing.
Yeah.
Or we were selling like under $100 a day. And it was, I don't know. So we're getting, surges of sales, but we haven't hit that time yet when we're, it's just every day. We're just selling 5 to 10 things, which is what we expect to start happening at some point.
And right now, for the next 30 days, our store is on 30-day handling. I mean, I'll change it as time passes. 30 business days, so you're like...
So that's like almost like 40 days.
So my feeling is either people see that and they're like, ugh. I mean, you'll get, if you do what we do, you'll get these messages... Why the heck does it take so long to get to me? We're traveling,
And then the other thing is, because we've been doing all these other things, we haven't listed anything since the beginning of August, so it's been almost a month.
Yeah.
So really, this is, if anyone's going to take away something from this is a snapshot of what it's like to have a large inventory, to not list it all, and to have long handling times, and we still made
good money.
$1,300.
Now that being said, because all of our listing information is in the cloud, everything's on Google Docs, pictures are in Dropbox. I hopefully am going to be listing. Now that's very hard to say when you're like in a beautiful European city. You're like, I don't want to do anything but like eat croissants, or Dutch pastries. And just lounge around. But
you could.
I know I could. I could do that while listing. But I do enjoy working, and I
could list too.
What did you just say?
I've listed before.
I know, it was a long time ago. I would love it. I think what we're trying to say is, it would be helpful to get some listings up, a few every week, so that it'll maybe help get the crank of our store moving again.
A few every day, yeah.
Just like something, anything, because we've been away so long. We're just like doing.
But
other things.
These I think again are the examples of having this kind of life. Like, do we just do a minimum, or do we put in a day a week? I mean, it's I don't know. We're figuring out.
It's tough,
and that's why we talk about our numbers, because it's a feedback loop. It's like. I'm feeling like, we're getting to the point where we're making enough to pay our bills, but we aren't making the extra money we like to make. The good thing is having a rental that we started has really taken a lot of its pressure off. I mean, we could live just on our rental income, which is really, really nice. But at the same time, I don't want to take eBay for granted.
No, not at all.
Okay, so let's talk about the things we sold this week.
Yeah.
We sold these 2 side tables for $230.
Yeah, so these are like these gorgeous mid-century modern, like 1950s American-made. Martinsville is the name of the brand, and they're gorgeous.
I thought they were Lane, no?
No, they're not Lane, but
got it.
Lane is another company in our area. They're Virginia. They made mid-century stuff, but I took a low price on these. I mean, they sold for $230 for the pair.
We had them up for $399.
I had them up for $400, but honestly, I've been trying to sell those forever. No one's been willing to come pick them up. No one wants to figure out the shipping. And this lady, I looked on her profile of solds, and she bought a ton of furniture. I was like, she's figured this out.
So we probably paid like $30 for both of them.
Yeah.
So
for
the fact
pair.
that we made $230, I mean, again, we made almost 10 times our money.
Yeah.
And again, it's just another example in our furniture experiment. When you have to do a local pickup, or the buyer has to arrange for, having it shipped, you're adding a hurdle, and so it's a little harder.
So it's a smaller amount of people willing to do that work. The great thing was she knew what she was doing. She asked all the right questions, and we arranged it with her. And actually, it was Plycon. Plycon called me. I've never worked with them before, and they were great. I was like, yep, we're going to be out of town. I'll make sure they're on the front porch for you, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been fine. That was actually great. They were totally professional. So I'm glad there was a buyer who's like, yep, got it covered, know what to do. I'm like, yay. So another thing that I sold, that this was one of the things that was stressing me out to pack, was a neon beer sign, like for a bar, or a man cave or whatever. So we had bought this at an auction. I think it was like $30 or $40. I don't think it was much more than that.
But we've had it again for about a year.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little
Longer.
bit more. I think maybe even 18 months now. And we got an offer of $150, and we took it.
I think I had it up for like $300 or something.
I think because I'd seen that its neon signs sell, I just think that we had one. It was like a Miller Lite sign.
Like everybody has that sign.
Or just no one wants a Miller Lite sign. I guess
they want like a PBR or like Ham's vintage beer.
But so, even on mistakes, quote unquote, we still
made money.
Good to move it, but yeah, definitely hard to pack, right?
Yeah, so this was the deal with this. It's kind of heavy. It's like 18 inches by 22 inches, which is not a fun thing to pack. It's large. Plus, you're double boxing it. So you're like, I gotta find a box it'll fit in after it's boxed. And I did. I had boxes that it fit, but I was so paranoid about how fragile something like that is. I've never packed a neon sign. And it's supposed to get delivered today. So I'm like, I've got tracking on email alerts. So as soon as they get it, I'm going to be like keeping an eye out. It's fully insured. That's all good. But I really hope he gets it, plugs it in, and it's like, bing. I'll probably never buy a neon sign again.
Yeah.
I don't want to pack those things.
A lesson learned. And then the last thing I wanted to mention we sold is Ryan took. This was in the video. We sold just a ball cap, a hat, for $75.
Yeah.
And I guess I just want to mention it. I feel like everyone's buying hats now, and it's like, that's cool. But,
Hey, people like hats.
So it was an ABC Wide World of Sports cap, and people are like, how'd you sell it for $75? It's more about, I think the only way I can say it is when I saw it, and, I bought it for under $1, I remember from the 80s, the ABC Worldwide of Sports, there was like a whole song to it. And
yeah.
I had never seen anything like that. There aren't a lot of examples to
yeah, you don't see something like that very often.
But it's just, we just made a decision based on why we thought it was so cool.
Yeah. And
we're willing to take a gamble on it, and it paid off. Because if you want that hat,
no one else has that.
No one else has that.
Well, like I found this is a similar thing. I found this NBC Peacock jacket. Like it's one of those nylon like baseball kind of varsity looking jackets, and on the back it's got the NBC logo
from the 80s.
I think it might be from the 70s.
Wow.
It's like I looked up what their logo looked like each, decade, and it told me that I think it was like the late 70s. And I'm like, for someone who worked at NBC back then, works at NBC now, I don't think I haven't sold it yet, but I'm like, I'm putting a high price on that because that's a cool piece of like memorabilia.
And, we're willing to wait for that price. So, it doesn't always work out, but, I think if we're patient, it does. And so everyone who's trying to sell hats, this is like it's kind of an art form, I guess, that, we're good sometimes not. I mean, obviously we only talk about things we sell and not about things we don't sell.
There's 4,000 things we haven't sold yet.
Yeah.
But part of it too is like, there are other things where we put a way high price and then someone's like, will you take this? And we're like, yeah,
Yep.
that happens all the time. But it's cool when someone's like, I want it sold full price.
Awesome.
Like, that's fun.
Okay, customer issues. Not a lot to talk about. We do want to wrap up one storyline just so people feel like they understand. We shipped something to France.
Yes.
That was not in global
Right.
shipping. There was no tracking on it. It stopped in America. The buyer said they didn't get it. We had no proof whether they did or not. They got their full refund for the item.
From PayPal.
From PayPal.
They opened a case in PayPal, and PayPal said, yep.
We had a ship saver insurance on it. Ryan called them, started the whole its process, and we just got
got paid. We did get
paid. It took about 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, it took about 2 weeks. And what I did was I called ShipSaver to be like, here's my situation. Because ShipSaver will say, oh, your buyer never got it?
Right.
Fill out this form. Like, my buyer doesn't like me because they had to open a case
and
against
we talked
me.
about that last week,
Yeah.
and so they were like, okay, fine, show us the screenshots of,
PayPal
the
paying them
conversation.
and all that.
And then, they basically open a ShipSaver case, and then it took about a week for them to make a decision on it, and they just gave us some money.
They paid us. Because it was about, with shipping, it was like $65. It was kind of high,
So, again, insurance is good, but it is a little bit of a pain in the ass. It's not just like click a button.
Yeah, it's
not
not
I get
easy.
paid.
Like,
it's
you have to provide proof. If they don't like your proof, you need to call and be like, what should I do? And
Right.
So you know what? Global shipping program.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Gotta say it.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's great for sellers. I know buyers are like, I'll never pay those prices. Cool.
Right.
But
it is interesting, though. Someone on the blog was commenting that some of their items were getting kicked out of the global shipping, and we had that happen when we sold that expensive briefcase, and it's kind of unclear if eBay is starting to kick more stuff out because they're having problems and they don't want to have to deal with certain items. Or
my theory on that, because as a lot of you know, that briefcase is a Louis Vuitton briefcase sold for $2,000. I just wonder if they kicked it out because of the price.
Well, but other people were, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know there are certain categories they cover and don't cover, and so it's just. But I can imagine that the problems we have, I bet they have the problems in spades because they're shipping so much stuff.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
But I hope eBay keeps it up.
I hope they expand it.
So what we did this past week. So
so packing.
You packed how many items?
I packed because stuff was selling when we were at home, so I had to pack that stuff too. I would say it was almost 70 items.
Wow.
I mean, there were days where I was like, it's 9 a.m. I'm gonna start packing. By dinner time, I'm like, I'm still packing. Like, I was seriously.
If ever this life doesn't work out, you could go and work at like Mailbox Etc. at a UPS store and be like a professional packer.
I mean, it's good because that means we sold a lot of stuff, but there were several items where I'm like, I left those ones till the end. I'm like, I don't even want to look at that.
I mean, so there was a guy who left a comment. He was like, I'm just brand new and, I'm selling some stuff, but now shipping. Oh, I hate it. I mean, how did you go from just being a regular person to being someone
a regular person
that can ship? You're a professional shipper, like
out of necessity. Mm-hmm. I mean,
but I mean, like when we went from just clothes and shoes, which are fairly easy.
Yeah, super easy.
We started to get bigger and bigger. I mean, were you going on blogs and reading about it? Like, how'd you learn?
I learned through other people who sold on eBay. Like, through our blog, through Mikey and Wendy. Because Mikey and Wendy they didn't start out with clothes. In fact, that's not their main thing. Their main thing is, like, weird, funky, cool stuff they find at yard sales. So they would be like, oh, this is how I pack this delicate thing. And I'm like, oh, like double boxing?
Yeah.
I had never done that before. I knew that they did that. They're like, they call it the floating method.
A box in a box.
A box in a box. That is like unless a truck runs over it, I've never had anything break that way.
Right.
So different technique. My mom's an eBay shipper too, so she'll be like, "Oh, I do it this way," But it's just purely out of necessity where you're like, "Here's a 6-foot tall lamp."
I think it's also something, because I don't pack, so I can't really say, but from what I see, it's also getting out of the mindset like you have to use a certain size.
Right.
It's boxes. Like, here's the boxes that they sell, so it's got to fit in there. No. You can make a box.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want as long as it's inside of the
dimensions that whatever carrier you're using, because FedEx Ground will ship bigger things than.
So it's about
USPS.
making boxes and also, we've always in the beginning we scavenged all of our shipping supplies because we were cheap and we wanted to not
it's
pay.
Free.
But then we started to realize we need to invest in, bubble wrap and some tools. And,
forever, I was like, I'll never buy that stuff. And then it just got so insane. Like, I could really use a ton of bubble wrap right now.
Yeah.
I should have that already. And it was you that was like, go on eBay,
well, just because
buy 400 square feet of bubble wrap and stick it in the corner. Yeah. And now I'm like, can't live without it. Yeah. Because what are you going to do?
And then, so the other thing was, we had mentioned earlier on the podcast, we happened to look at this auction we have, and I've heard other people say this too. More and more local auctions are starting to put stuff online. And there's one local auction that we would go to in person that I don't even know if they do in-person auctions anymore.
It seems like they've stopped
them. They do it all online. And so in some ways it's nice because instead of us having to show up there on a certain day, we can now just troll their site and buy stuff. But at the same time, it means, and probably why they do it, there's more people who are willing to buy from them. So we happened to buy a couple of wool rugs for relatively cheap. We probably paid $300 for two
of them.
They're bigger than 8x10. They're like 8x11, 8x12.
Something like that.
And they're wool rugs, and they're nice.
So the thing was about it, like, we're rug nerds. We love rugs. We love wool rugs. I love buying them. I love selling them. I love owning them. That online auction, the photos were so bad. They were terrible photos, and they did not list the material. So you're like, this could be acrylic, and it could be a piece of crap rug.
But that's the thing that these auction houses do is their out is, well, you can come and look at it.
It's up to you. It's up to you to come look at it.
It's almost like we're putting a placeholder. But if you want to come and look at it and inspect it, go for it. But it's not like eBay where it's responsible to put all the
information.
So because this auction house is really about an hour from our house.
Oh, it's like an hour and a half.
It makes it difficult to actually go and preview. So we were doing a risk, and we were willing to risk about $300 on these two huge rugs. But I mean, it turns out now
they're both wool.
We have like $2,000 worth of rugs.
I mean, so check it out. So we were thinking this. Even if they're acrylic, they're big room-size rugs. You could still sell those, even if they're acrylic.
And they had a nice pattern.
Yeah, they had a nice pattern. So, but the great thing was, Jay brought them home. This is so funny. I love this story. Jay brings them home. It's a gorgeous day out. He puts them out on the back deck, and you're like, I'm so bummed. These are not wool. They're totally not wool. And I put my fingers on one of them. I'm like, yes, they are.
Well, just because they aren't like a lot of the other ones we buy where they're actually kind of antique.
Right. One of them is, though. One of them's handmade.
One of them is
more
like made in 2002.
Yeah, it's machine made. But and the way that we knew for sure is I did a burn test. Yeah. And I was like, yay, they're wool. Yep. I was so happy.
It's good.
But what's interesting about this local auction place is I think they're going fully online because there are bidding wars way more online than there are in person. Like, we were bidding against someone for those rugs, and of course I was being like one of those super competitive people. I was like, I'm getting this rug. I'm getting it.
That's what they want.
You know?
But the good thing is I don't think we paid any more than we would have paid in person. And we might even pay less. I mean, I've seen wool rugs go for more. But then at the same time, we've been at in-person auctions, and we've gotten these wool rugs for $20. So
yeah, exactly.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, that's tough. But it was a good experience, actually. And just one more point on this. The thing that sucks about those online auctions is when you're like, oh, I'll bid on these rugs and these like patches and a couple pieces of jewelry and whatever. And then when you don't win the big ones and you're like, all I won was that tiny lot of jewelry and now I have to drive like 75 miles to go get this. That sucks.
I think auction houses need to get smarter and be willing to ship. I think if they ship, they could even attract buyers in other
from everywhere,
states, you know.
But then that's the beauty of the local auction. They're like, we don't want to deal with that, you know? Exactly. So...
so we aren't talking about a rental property anymore here. This is all eBay, but you can go to shampooandbooze.com and we have a whole
new podcast all about the rental where we get into the meat of it. So we don't have to put all the, I mean, I'm talking minutia. I'm talking about how I do laundry, how I get stains out of pillowcases. Like, that's what we're talking about on that blog, if you're interested.
Right. Other businesses. You know? I liked how someone on the blog said, I mean, that's really what we're doing here is that we're just talking about not so much eBay or not so much Airbnb. It's just like, it's more about how to not work for somebody else. Yeah. And, these are a couple of examples of how we've learned, but it could be anything. It could be it's running an animal shelter, I don't know. It could be whatever you can think of to pay your bills, Yep. And hopefully... And the whole point is to enjoy it.
Right, exactly.
Okay, a couple things we learned in the comments. It's Beth said something very good. We've, been kind of struggling. We now have 2 stores, and we've been kind of like calling them different things.
Store number 1 and store number 2.
She was like, call at your main store the flagship store. That's a good,
It makes me think of like, anyone who's from New England knows Jordan's Furniture.
Jordan's.
It makes me think of like, it's the Jordan's Furniture in Avon.
Yeah.
That's our flagship store. And then we have one in Nashua. Like,
is that what they say?
No, I don't know, but it just, I don't even know if they call it that, but it just, all I can picture is Barry and Elliot from Jordan's Furniture.
Jordan's
like
Nashua.
Dude, let's go to Jordan's up in Nashua and buy a lazy boy. You know what I'm talking about, New Englanders. Okay, that's enough of that.
And then someone, I think it was
Josh.
Josh. He said you could connect your eBay store
to Google Analytics.
And I think I heard this, but then it's confirmed, like, really, you can do it, but you have to go through this certain app that costs money. And then the info you get really isn't that helpful. And I'm like, it's like eBay. It's like... I will be more in love with this company
if they gave you analytics.
Get better analytics.
Like,
I just don't know why
the analytics
so
app is called Kai Googlealytics. And nowhere... And it's through the App Center, through eBay. I can't find... People, please point me towards this. I can't find anywhere on the App Store thing that tells me how much it costs. I'm like, how much does this cost?
I think he said $5.99, but yeah, they should make it.
But why is it not? Because I was like, I want to try it. How much do people? What are they doing?
It's strange. Like a company like Terapeak, I don't know. I mean, they give you stats on just eBay in general. It's interesting. It seemed like that would be a service they could offer, where they could give you stats for your own store.
Yeah, it seems like...
I don't know, maybe they do that. But
I feel like it's the most basic thing that anyone who does anything on the web wants to have. Like Blogger, they give you all the stats, you know?
I was thinking, if I could get like daily stats or just like real-time stats where I could see, this item like is getting a lot of hits for some its reason, like maybe it got listed on a forum somewhere. Right. Maybe we could fool it's with a price a little bit, or put like a small sale or something.
Yeah. You're either you're like, there are 1 million people watching this, and I just listed it in 5 minutes. Maybe the price is too low, or God, I listed this forever ago, and all these people are watching it, but they're not buying it. Why don't I slash the price by 15%?
Right.
And see if that helps.
But you can see that info now. Like, I've got 75 people who are watching it. I mean, I want to see like today. It got 300 people came and saw
this thing I've had for a while.
They aren't watching it; they just
saw it,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And right now, You don't really get that real-time info.
You know what's weird, though, about eBay? When you look at your active listings in Seller Manager Pro, which I'm sure a lot of us do, to see how many watchers, to see how many views, you cannot sort by views. You can sort by, like, oh, what has my highest watcher? Can't sort by views. Why?
Yeah.
Why would eBay limit that? You're like, come on, people. That's like basic info. Anyway.
Okay, our coming week,
What's our coming week look like? Walking by the canals.
It could be anything. It really could be anything.
Yeah.
So, we're not sure how chill we're going to make this week, or, sometimes what happens to us is like, we have a couple days where we're just kind of chilling out, we're watching movies.
Taking walks.
And then it's almost like we get bored and we're like, I need to do
something.
I need to do some work,
Yeah. I mean, we've said this before, and sometimes I feel weird about it because people think we're weird, or I think I'm weird. We're just not, like, touristy. Like, we're in Amsterdam, and everyone's like, oh, the museums. I've gone to one tiny, tiny museum while we've been here. We've been here, like, 5 times. Yeah. It's just not, I like experiencing the city in different ways, in, like, a scavenger way.
You know what?
We picked stuff out of the trash yesterday.
Like I said, yep.
We picked out of the trash? Okay, let's talk about what we picked out of the trash real quick. A big handbag. It's like a piece of luggage. It's kind of like an Old Navy type of thing, but it's not Old Navy brand. It's like a European brand.
And really, we needed it for ourselves, just to have an extra bag to
for
hold
when
things.
We buy stuff. It's super cute. I'm totally going to sell it when I get it home. And then we were walking around the corner, and on this little, like, stoop. No, it wasn't a stoop. It was like
a ledge.
A ledge. Someone had just left 2 beers.
2 Heinekens.
2 Heinekens.
2 Heinies.
Heineken, made in Amsterdam. And I was like, 2 free beers? Like, you cannot beat that.
2 unopened cans of beer.
Like,
some drunk guy, couldn't hold them any longer.
He's like, I can put them down.
Ryan brought them home, washed them off, and drank them.
Cracked one open. I was like, nice. So that was really funny. You gotta love trash picking like that, though. Yeah. It's so fun. And since we're in a fancy neighborhood, we were like, we have to get over the stigma of people like, did they just pull that out of the garbage? It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Exactly. It's all a stigma.
Yeah, I did just pull it out of the trash.
So what we need to do, or what we like to do, is we have a winter close. We want
to list.
I would love to get stuff like that up.
It needs to get up now.
We have a couple big projects we've been kind of putting off. That, if we do them, it'd be fun to announce them.
Yes.
But, things we've wanted to do, and this is a perfect time.
Right.
To do it.
As you look at me, hint, hint, Ryan. It's your job. It's on your hard drive. It's your job. No, I do. I want to get that stuff done. Yeah. While I sit in a cafe.
I think people just think I don't do anything. I don't see. I'm like the house husband. I don't do anything. I love it.
You do so many things that I do not want to do.
That's so cute.
Like, I'm like, you know what? I'll go do this technical thing over here, and you go call the person who's supposed to mow our yard and deal with that, because I don't want to deal with it.
We make a good team, Ryan.
We're a good team. I think so.
Okay, so let's answer some questions that people called in.
Yay. So you can call us at 540-407-8486 and leave a message, a question or comment, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, really, we're just looking for, as always, just, if you have a question that you want to ask us and other people, or if you have a comment on something that you've heard and want to share it, it makes us feel like we're just not talking into a void.
Yeah, and the great thing, too, about calling is if we don't know the answer, a lot of times people will comment in the comments on the blog and help answer the question, because we don't know everything. We can try, but we don't.
Yep.
Hi, this is Judy, not far from you, down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I'm so lucky to have found your show early on. I love it. I wanted to ask if you can give any tips about how you research. If you ask most places, they'll tell you to get Terapeak or WorthPoint and all that stuff. And I'm guessing, Ryan, that you do it yourself. And I wondered if you have any other things that you do besides look at eBay and eBay solds. Thanks so much, and thanks for doing the show. I get a whole lot out of it. Bye.
Okay, so we don't use any of those services because we just use eBay completed listings. Sometimes you'll find an item that was just listed on Etsy, and there are ways to find prices on Etsy. There's a tool I think that Josh made that shows you the Etsy prices.
But there's only one by one, and you can't do a search
and get
a list of everything.
But if you're like,
sold.
here's this weird mug, there's 2 on Etsy that sold in the past. Let's go see how much they sold them for. Also, if you have a weird item that's not on either of those sites, you can Google it or Google image search it, stuff like that, just to see what it is and, things like that. That's the extent of our research.
I mean, I think the other thing, too, is just, we've evolved over time. We've talked about, we started off at $9.99. That was our price point. We sold, it was $9.99, or the expensive stuff was $19.99.
Whoa!
Sometimes $12.99, and then we just started to experiment, people are charging more for this stuff. Let's try it. And we do that now. A lot of things we're just trusting our gut.
Yeah.
Like that $75, hat.
Right.
Just like a baseball cap, but it just had a cool logo on it of something I thought might stick with
special to someone.
And I didn't know if we'd get $75 for it, but
that's the beauty also of eBay is you can be flexible where you can make an offer on something. And that's always helped us. Where we're like, I think 120 is a good price on this, but I'll make an offer on it, and you can say yes or no to offers.
Yeah. So I feel like when I get these questions, often I feel it's from people who are new, and it's a good question to ask. But I don't think there's a really good answer, because it's not like we're selling commodities that it's like, okay, Walmart charges $10.99, so I'm gonna be around that price.
Right, exactly.
These are items that are not commodity items. These are collectible stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, my name is Angela, and I'm calling from Texas. I've listened to y'all off and on, and I really do appreciate your advice, and I find it quite helpful. But anyway, I'm a hobby seller. I'm not doing it full time. I get bored. But I had over 600 items in my store. I want to say closer to 800. And for some reason, I was like, man, nothing is selling. And I know it's summer, and my pile of already listed just kept getting bigger and bigger. I put them all in boxes. And so this weekend I took them and I pulled everything out of the boxes and I compared to what I have listed. And now I'm down to exactly 500 listings. So over 300 of my items just disappeared. They aren't on eBay. I know they were there. I've answered questions about these items. So is there something where eBay drops listings, or what should I be looking at to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Because it took quite a haul, and now I have probably 1,000 items to list. It's crazy. So anyway, I appreciate all you do. Thanks for your insight. Bye.
So, first of all, if you're a hobby seller with 600 items, you've got a pretty good hobby going on.
That's a big hobby.
That's good.
That's like a part-time job.
Yeah. So that's good for you.
Or a full-time job.
As far as things disappearing, obviously the answer is you got to call eBay.
Well, if eBay wasn't the second person you called after us, second phone number you called after us, that's crazy. Yeah. If you're missing almost like half your items, that's crazy. Yeah. And number two, if you're using 30-day listings or 7-day listings or whatever, your stuff is going to end. Yeah. So you have to relist it.
I'm thinking this person is probably not an amateur, so she probably knows that when you list for 30 days, it then takes it out and then puts it in your unsold, and you have to relist. So that can look like they are gone,
right?
But she probably knows that. So
true.
But again, if you call eBay, they'll be able to track it down and tell you the answer. That's never happened to us since 2008. We've never had items
just disappear or go away. No, never.
So hopefully it works out.
Yeah, and actually, if you want to comment on the blog or call us back, I would love to know what happened, how you resolved it. What did eBay say?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Hey, Ryan, this is Greg. I called in last week about eBay changing the shipping fee after I accepted an offer where the buyer wanted the total to come out to an exact amount of $54. And I went back and checked. I didn't have more than one shipping option offered. You asked about if I maybe had that and asked about if I could let you know what went on. I did just go ahead and send the buyer a new invoice for the exact $54 because I didn't want to lose the sale or have an angry customer, and it was need to sell anyway. And then when I went to prep the shipping, the total shipping that I paid was actually less than what the buyer paid, so I came out pretty good anyway, so I'm not complaining. That's what happened. I think that the buyer maybe was browsing and not being logged into eBay, maybe in a different location, and then when they logged in to make the offer, the shipping changed, but they didn't notice it. So that's my opinion. So there you go. Thanks for all the info. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye.
So it sounded like your call was breaking up a little bit. It was hard to hear, but basically what you're saying is you think that the buyer, when they went to check on the prices, the calculated prices, they weren't signed in with their zip code, or maybe they had switched their zip code or something like that. And then when you went to send the invoice to their actual shipping address, it was like $3 more. That's totally possible. That's a good theory.
No, yeah, I mean, sometimes, I don't know.
Weird anomalies like that happen. So hopefully you worked it out and they weren't angry.
I mean, bottom line, as long as the buyer is happy, that's fine. Or if you just wanted to eat a couple bucks to make the sale, that's fine. But
yeah,
I mean, we've been talking in the comments. It's this week. People have been talking about the discount you get for a shipping. And,
should you give that discount to your customer?
And also not always estimating sizes right. So as a seller, you actually have to pay more to ship it than with charge, and you then charge the buyer more. I mean, these are all things we all have to make a decision on. We kind of don't deal with a lot of that stuff. We just have the price is the price.
Calculated price.
If we make a little bit more than what it actually costs us, we keep it. If it costs us, if we have to pay more because we didn't weigh it right, we just eat that cost. And at the end of the month, it kind of all evens out.
Yeah, I'll give an example. So I had this guy buy these 2 Samsonite suitcases. They're freaking huge.
Like the giant kind.
The giant ones. They're like 22 by 24 by 8. They're big, right? So he paid what it looked like for just one. Somehow it was calculated a lot less. It was basically $10 less than what he paid. It's shipping 2 of them together. They're huge, whatever. They're oversized. Shipping them was $10 more.
Right, because we forgot that it would be an oversized box.
It was bigger, yeah.
And that was not in the price of the shipping. But we just ended up eating it, and we lost $10 on that sale. But, we backed up what we had told them it was. And that, to me, is the most important thing. When someone buys an item, they see the price that they're going to get charged to ship it, and they're agreeing that's what I'm willing to pay. And so they're willing to pay that. That's what we charge them, and that's it.
Yeah.
And like I said, if it's a little bit less, that's okay, because they've agreed on a certain price. And if it's more, it's our fault, and we have to eat it. So
so my thing was it's just going to even out. So, It wasn't that big a deal, and I didn't want to bother my customer.
As long as there's transparency in how much things are being charged. Yeah. That's all.
Hi, Jay and Ryan. My name's Karen, and I'm a faithful listener of your Scavenge Live podcast on YouTube. Love it. Learned so much from you. I have a question about global shipping. Do you guys weigh every item before you list it, and then put the weight of each item in the listing so it can be calculated by the potential buyer? And do you have a box that you measure the box and put the measurements in and all that for every item you list? I'm not exactly sure how this works. I've looked up as much information as I could find, but it's a little bit vague on that particular part. And what about flat rate boxes? Those are not international. I know we only have to ship to Kentucky, but what if it's in a flat rate box? I'm very confused about the whole global shipping program, but it'd be nice to open up the world to, selling my things to them. So I hope that you guys can make it a little more clear for me as to how that whole thing works. And I'll be listening. Take care. Bye.
Okay, so...
I mean, the answer is yes.
Yes.
I mean, and this is a great question to what we just talked about, is that when we take pictures of an item, we weigh it. So we have a scale that we use, and then, because we've been doing this for a while, then we also estimate how much we think the box is going to weigh, in the packing material. It's normally like half a pound
to
or
a pound,
or a pound, depending
so.
on how big it is. And then when you list it, you don't actually measure out a box.
No.
You just know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you don't have to put the dimensions into eBay unless you're sending it FedEx, where you kind of do. But I'll guesstimate. I mean, I'll be like those suitcases. I had the measurements for one suitcase, the proper measurements for one suitcase packed. When it combined shipping, it was like, it's the same as one. I'm like, oh, great. If you have the weight in there for how much it's going to weigh for you to get it to Global Shipping Warehouse, that's it. That's fine. You have a pair of shoes, they weigh 3 pounds.
Yeah.
That's what you put in.
I mean, the thing that we need to stress here, though, is that if it's oversized, that's when you need to add special sizes, right?
Right, exactly.
Because that's when the post office kicks in the extra charge if it's oversized. And for 99.9% of our items, they aren't oversized. Yeah.
But if you have a painting that's 30 inches tall,
right,
you better measure that out, give a buffer of several inches, however big, if you're going to pack it yourself, which I do, and you overestimate in your listing. It's going to be 40 inches by X by X.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why, too, a lot of people that sell on eBay, they like to be like, I just like to sell small things. Everything goes in a flat rate envelope because they don't really want to deal with this. They want consistency.
Yeah.
I just want to sell mugs, or I just want to sell ball caps.
And you can do that.
Because then I know the price for everything.
Right.
I charge a single price, and that's fine. But we don't mind.
I don't mind doing it.
Yeah.
I like doing it. I like the challenge. The other thing, too, is flat rate priority can go international. But if you're shipping the Global Shipping Program, it doesn't matter. They're going to put labels all over that thing, or they're going to repackage it. So it doesn't matter if you send it medium flat rate. They're sending it to Canada Post. Canada Post doesn't care what kind of box it's in. So they put their own Canada Post label on top of that. So you ship anything you want to Kentucky.
But I do think it's interesting. So the kind of question, the way it's asked is very common for people who are kind of newish to eBay. It's like, selling on eBay's fun. It's easy. You just pick it up in your closet, and I sold it, and I shipped it. Cool.
But when you start to
treat it like a business, and you start having multiple items in different sizes, you kind of have to build.
Figure that stuff out.
You got to build a system.
Yeah.
And, and that's the difference between it being kind of a hobby or just kind of fun to you have to have everything kind of lined up correctly.
Or if you're just selling clothes and you're like, I figured that out, I don't care about anything else. Because we used to be like that. When I looked at glassware, I wouldn't look at it. I would just be like, not looking, blinders. But then for us, and this is just us, I was like, wow, people buy this stuff. People buy it all the time. I bought that for 25 cents and someone paid $35 for this little wine glass because it was special and whatever. If I can learn how to pack that and the person's willing to pay, for 2 pounds, for this thing, cool.
Yep.
That's just me. But if you don't want to deal with that, just sell clothes or just sell, tiny whatever. So it just depends on your tolerance of wanting to figure it out and make mistakes. Because I certainly made a lot of mistakes in the beginning where my buyers were like, post office just charged me $15. WTF? I'm like, oops.
Right. Like that guy on the blog, Steve.
Yeah.
He seems to really specialize in old
stereo equipment,
vintage stereo
now,
equipment, and he knows what sells and what doesn't, but he's also having to build boxes.
He is very tolerant of learning how to do boxes, because when you're selling a tube amp, you better make sure that that's getting to someone in working order.
But at the same time, he's making good
a lot of money
because he's someone that has what I think is a relatively small store, but he often makes more money than we do because, you know, he can buy something for $40 and sell it for $500.
You know why? Because nobody else wants to ship that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy to ship that stuff. Steve, you're crazy, but you know, that's where you can make more money. You're willing to ship a vintage breakable lamp with a fiberglass shade. You might be the only one that's got that one listed.
Hey guys, my question is, do you guys test all of your electronic items? And if so, how thoroughly do you test them? Thanks.
So, yeah, we don't really sell a lot of electronic items exactly for the reason that you're asking. We test things, we only sell things if we can test it pretty well.
Yeah.
So, you know, that would be, you know, we plug it in, we turn it on, you know, it has to actually work for us. And if we can't do that, we kind of stop selling those things.
Yeah.
So things like, I don't know, there were things we would buy and we could test them kind of, but we could never really finish through the testing. And then and then the person would say, oh, it doesn't work. And then you have to eat the shipping.
Oh, like,
blah,
here's
blah,
an
blah.
example.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen Schultz, again, will be like, what? You're crazy. Vintage turntables. I can't tell you how many record players I bought that people were like, this doesn't have the needle. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. You have to buy a needle. So if it didn't have the needle, I couldn't test it fully. And if it didn't have a needle, people were like, well, what kind of needle? I don't know who to buy it from. I'm like, that was the end of that for me. So, you know, there are things like that where I'm like, if I don't feel confident in them working, I'm not going to buy them anymore.
And, you know, I'm sure a lot of us at thrift stores or auctions, you'll see these vintage, like stereos or electronics or whatever. And I mean, I feel like you really have to know your stuff and know how to test these things.
And want to fiddle with them if they're not working right.
Because if not, you know, there's just no, I mean, then the only other thing to do that's honest is to say parts. Like, this is being sold as parts because I can't test it properly.
Right.
That covers you because then you're just telling people it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And if someone wants to try and fix it, that's cool.
Or if it works, that's bonus for the person.
But then as soon as you say being sold for parts, you're going to get such smaller amount
prices.
Of prices.
Like here's a quick example. I have these electronic locks that I bought for the farmhouse. And I installed it. It felt like it was working. And I was like, this thing's just not working. It's not deadbolting. Either I need to take it apart and fix it, which I'm not willing to do, or sell it to someone that's willing to fiddle with it and either use it for parts or fix it. So I'm like, this might work for the right person. I'm not saying that in the listing. I'm like, for parts, broken, turns on, doesn't deadbolt, you know. And I can't sell it to save my life. So hopefully someday someone will buy it. But that's an example of like, you know, if you can't fully test it and get it to work 100%, you know, you got to be willing to either do that or sell it as parts.
And plus I know that some sellers are really into video games. I'm assuming that's just because they love video games personally, so that's what they're interested in, so that's what they like to find and sell. I don't buy that stuff because I don't know video games. I don't have a Sega and a Nintendo. I mean, I feel like to buy those cartridges, you have to be able to actually test them.
That's a good point.
And we don't buy them because we don't have that stuff to test.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a shorter episode just because we want to get this up. We're a bit of a day late. But you can check out a blog at scavengerlife.com for any links we talk about, and you can join the conversation.
You can also call and leave a question or a comment on something you heard or read on the comments. The phone number is 540-407-8486.
We normally post this episode on Sunday nights or Monday mornings. This will probably be more Monday night today. On Wednesdays, we do a What's Sold video, but since we're out of town, we have a couple of interviews we're going to post instead. One of them is cool it's this week we're gonna post an interview with some Etsy sellers.
Etsy, it's a totally different platform.
Who I fell in love with. They warmed my heart with their hard work and their smart store. I love these kids.
And they're super stylish.
Yep. So, and since everyone's been talking about Etsy, we really wanted to get deep into, I mean, these people make a living and they're making money.
On Etsy, a place that we denied for a very long time. So it's awesome to hear, hey, people are making it work.
You can subscribe to us to iTunes or YouTube, or just go to our blog, and on the sidebar you can put your email in and you'll just get emailed anytime there's a post. And thanks for joining us today, this Amsterdam edition.
We hope that your phone has been cha-chinging while the podcast is happening, because you certainly didn't hear any cha-chings here.
I have my phone on and it's not cha-ching once.
Oh, it's so sad.
But that's how it is.
Okay. Bye. See you later. We're ending this podcast in 3, 2, 1.
Bye.